Tharpe. I'm here live to take your U.S. immigration related questions. And I am here also to give you immigration updates and information about how to get protection in these times in 2025. Now, first of all, I want to check in with all of you. I know we're on day 8 or 9 right now, and it's been really overwhelming for me as the attorney representing my clients, just keeping up with the changes and trying to make sure that my clients' interests are protected. And I'm sure that if you are an immigrant, you are facing a lot of fear and uncertainty. So I want to check in and just let you know that I understand. I may not be in your shoes exactly, but my job is to represent clients who want to get their papers here, who want to do it legally. And because of that, I have a very good idea about what's at stake and what you're going through. So I just want to connect with you all to let you know, hold steady. God is in the driver's seat. If you know, if you, I know if you believe in a higher power, you know that faith is going to take us through, and faith and hard work, of course, and also that God is in the driver's seat. So have faith to know you are a good person. You have been working to try to get everything done correctly. That's why I'm here. That's why my clients are my clients, because they want to do it correctly. And so just hang tight and let's start focusing on solutions here. That's my job, to look at solutions. So, with that being said, I'm going to give you some updates, but also go ahead and talk about solutions, right? The solutions, that's the important part. So, the latest news that we got today was that Noam, who is now the Christine Noem, who is now the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, has revoked the extended TPS, temporary protected status, for 600,000 Venezuelans. So that, and we anticipate that there's more to come. They are definitely going to work towards terminating TPS. So we're gonna have to look to see exactly what they do, if they extend some countries and then they terminate some. But as of today, they have revoked the extension that was granted to 600,000 Venezuelans. Um, right now, there are still immigration forms of relief that I still work with. And if you do qualify for any other type of immigration benefit, if you qualify for family based, if you qualify for employment based in every way, do not hold off. Take action now. Time is really of the essence. So I'm going to go over some solutions that if you're already here, you don't have your papers, right? That means you're undocumented. Whether you overstayed, whether you came in without permission, whether you came into the border, you don't have any proof of status here. Here are some solutions that can help you to still seek relief here. So what we look at is I'm going to list out all of the forms of relief if you're in a situation like that. Maybe not all, but the most common ones. And I'll go through them one by one, then I'll go through your questions. But the first is, if you're here without your papers but you overstayed, right? Not, no, it's a different matter if you came into the country without permission. But if you overstayed and you have a US citizen or legal permanent resident, spouse, a parent, or a US citizen, adult child who's age 21 or older, then there is going to be options for you. We'd have to talk to you to see what the circumstances are regarding your relative, but your relative can either petition for you. And if you're in a situation where these same relatives mistreated you, no, I want to go back and I want to chat back there because I mentioned permanent resident, spouse, and parent. Only in cases of VAWA, right? If you're undocumented, you don't have your papers, you can't show current status here, only in cases of VAWA would you be able to apply based on the relationship with a permanent resident or a permanent resident parent or um, spouse. So I want to start over because I want to be very clear here. All right. So the first form of relief is family based, right? If you're here without your papers and you would like a family member to petition for you while you are here, then it's going to be, are you the spouse of a US citizen? Are you the parent of a US citizen who is age 21 or older? Or are you the son or daughter under 21 and unmarried of a US citizen? If you fall within the category, you already overstayed your visa, you can still qualify for this, right? Through family. Keep in mind, if you enter the country without permission, that means snuck across the border, that option will not be available to adjust status while you're here and to get your work permit while you're here. Now, in the case though, that say you came to the United States, you ended up getting married, or you were at some point residing with a US citizen or legal permanent resident spouse, a US citizen or legal permanent resident parent, or a US citizen son or daughter who's age 21 or older, and they mistreated you, then there is relief to apply on your own. You don't need to depend on them to help you to get your papers, and this is confidential. Now, this applies to those who, no matter how you entered the country, you could qualify for this relief, whether you came with a visa but overstayed, or even if you came through the border, right? And you continue to be here, then you can qualify. It's called VAWA. If mistreatment is involved and you lived with this permanent resident, so green card holder spouse or citizen spouse, a green card holder parent or citizen parent if you're under 21 and unmarried, under 24 in some cases, or if you were the son, the parent of a US citizen, son or daughter who's age 21 or older, then you can qualify for relief. So don't think because they are not applying for you that you can't get this relief on your own. And this applies if you are mistreated by them, right? This is under VAWA. Very important that you pursue these forms of relief now, because as 2025 goes by, we will see those changes coming. They're supposed to announce those changes. So it gives us time, but you don't want to be doing this last minute because there's evidence that we have to gather, there's documentation that we have to go ahead and submit. So you don't want to wait. Get on it now, because these are not types of applications that we can just file tomorrow. In only in extreme cases can we file something the next day in an emergent case. But in most cases, attorneys are not going to agree to do things on a whim. I know already it's really hard to even hire an attorney on a whim, right? I know if you've been calling attorneys, you know that there's a process to be able to retain an attorney. So get on it now. Now, the other thing, so if you fall within those categories, make sure you go ahead and schedule your appointment. You can do that We right now we are expanding our team to be able to help as many people as possible who qualify for these, so that we can put you in an empowering position to get protection, instead of having to fear the risk that you're facing right now. All right. So the other thing is, if you were here, or you were lured into the United States by an employer or by an individual, and when you came, you found out that they say they promised you something. They promised to give you work. They promised to get your work permit, right? In the midst of giving you work, they promised to give you a work permit. They told you a certain amount they would pay you, and you came thinking you were complying, you were totally within the law here because they're going to sponsor you. That was the promise. And then say they you come here and it's a completely different situation, right? Say they have withheld your pay, or they start to pay you less than they told you that they were going to pay you after you started working. They start to take monies out of your pay that you never agreed for them to take out. They start to give you tasks that you never agreed to do, but now you're stuck in the situation and you feel intimidated by them. Sometimes, in cases, they may directly threaten you or indirectly threaten you. Um, you know, so you know that if you don't obey them, you're going to end up on the streets. You're going to end up being reported to police or ICE, or they're going to call the police on you, or they're going to retaliate. They're going to even retaliate physically, or yell at you in cases, and or verbally abuse you. In cases like this, there's what's called T status. And unfortunately, I can guarantee this is going to get worse because of the fact that immigrants are now forced to go into hiding because of what they're faced, the risk of deportation. So I know that these conditions are going to get worse. But what I want you to know is, do not go and hide. Seek help from us, because that means you're a victim of trafficking, right? And, according to we have to take this with a grain of salt. But according to this administration, the one of the reasons they're so hard on illegal immigration is to prevent trafficking. I mean, let's take that with a grain of salt. I know it goes deeper than that. And so that is what this is there for. It's to stop trafficking and help people. This is a form of labor trafficking. What I described is a form of labor trafficking. And this T status is there as a form of relief to stop the trafficking, or to help you to escape the trafficking. So if you're going through something like this, if your employer starts to threaten you now, they start to say, well, if you don't do this, or you better buck up because, or if you leave this house, you're going to be deported, or if you leave this place, you're going to be deported. That's trafficking, because now they're putting you in a state of fear. They're putting you in a state of fear of serious consequences, to the point that you start to obey them, you start to comply with their demands. And it's even in situations where they don't pay you. If they don't pay you, or that they don't pay you on time, that's a way that they're also holding you restricted. Because if you come here with very limited money, you're probably working under circumstances where you have very little money, and because of that, you're unable to escape the situation because you're being deprived of enough pay to even leave the situation. So this is why I always say this is on a case by case basis. We need to talk to you. We need to delve into your situation. And the reason a lot of attorneys miss these qualifications is because they don't ask, but we do, because we want to make sure that our clients are safe and our clients are getting the relief they need, they deserve, right? You're not, no immigrant, no matter how you came in, no matter how you've been here, deserves to be abused and treated like a slave. So that's the T status, and it doesn't matter if you, at the point that you are qualified for the T status, they're not going to hold your immigration status against you, because obviously you were trafficked, and in the midst of being trafficked, you did not have your papers. So that is not going to be held against you. So what you can do is, if this very one scenario, it sounds familiar, get in touch with us and let's see if you qualify and get started. Now, remember, the definition of trafficking is very broad, right? So it means, what I usually say, if you're in a situation where you felt trapped because of the actions of someone else, and you fear the consequences from that someone else if you didn't obey them or if you didn't stay with them, then that means that you may qualify for this relief. Because if you were in fear of consequences as a result of the actions of somebody else, that means you were coerced, you were forced, you were tricked into being a situation, in staying in a situation. And that situation has to do with you working. Did you have to do tasks for them? And did they make you do those tasks by making you afraid of the consequences? So that's the other. Now, if you've been the victim of a crime here, then there is what's called the U status. The U status allows us, with the certification from law enforcement, to be able to get you a deferred action and then the U visa. Keep in mind, these also extend to family members. Let me know if the sound is gone on Instagram. I'm seeing someone say sound is gone. So just go ahead and just let me know. Somebody let me know on Instagram, because I want to make sure you're hearing. So these are some of the options. If you've been here for less than 1 year and you fear going back to your country because you are threatened or targeted, or you have been targeted in the past because of your identity, because of your religion, because of your political affiliation, because of any particular group that you are part of, then you can. Okay, thank you so much, Adrienne. Thank you, Bailey. Thank you, Trudy. I appreciate that. Thank you, Nora. Um, right. So, asylum, if you fear going back to your home country. Of course, there are restrictions if you're outside of the country, or if you've come through the border. There are certain restrictions we'd have to keep in mind. But please give us a call. Let us talk through these options, these various options for you, to be able to see if one of these can work for you. Now, employment wise, if your employer wants to petition for you, that is also something that you need to make sure you, first of all, do not start working before. And this applies if you're outside of the United States, if you're here visiting, and somehow maybe you guys are floating the idea of going through the employment-based process. It's very common for people to fall into this trap. The employer says, I'm going to sponsor you, so come start working for me. And then you start working for them, and they either intentionally lie to you, or maybe they didn't realize that they couldn't just sponsor you like that. And then eventually, after some time of putting your labor into them, your trust into them, losing your immigration status, you find out that they can't sponsor you. And it's too late at that point. Many people fall into this trap. Always get the papers first, then you start working. And if your employer is floating the idea, or a potential employer, because you shouldn't be working here with them. If the potential employer is floating the idea of sponsorship, explore that as soon as possible, and make sure that you get on it. As long as you qualify, make sure you understand whether you can apply for adjustment of status or not, because in many cases there is a wait period right now for employment based. So just keep that in mind. Many people ask about the national interest waiver. There is also a wait list right now for the national interest waiver. So please get in touch with us and let's talk about your options, right? Let's talk about your options. If you're going for H-1B or H-2B, these require employer sponsorship, right? And get those papers first, then you start working. Always just remember that rule so that you don't fall into any traps. All right. So I went over some of the solutions that are available if you're here without your papers and you want to figure out how to get protection. I'm leaving it to you to go ahead and schedule an appointment with us so we can go over your circumstances and figure out which option works best for you. Now, I'm going to go ahead and answer questions across the platforms. So I'm on TikTok, I'm on YouTube, and I am on Instagram. So and you know, part of this too is I want to connect with you. So if it's even to leave a comment about, you know, what this past week has been like, just if you want to be heard, feel free, because we've all, I know my colleagues, we're all very busy and we're all just feeling the effects of the whiplash, I should say, from the changes that have been occurring very quickly. So trying to keep up with those changes. All right. So I'm going to start on TikTok. So please just hang tight as I make my way around to the platforms. I'm going to scroll to the top so I can get the earlier comments first. Married for 4 years, still no petition application. Should I be worried about deportation? Yes, you need to get your petition in. If your spouse is not helping you, then we need to talk to figure out what's going on. If they're mistreating you, even if, and it doesn't matter if you came into the country without permission or if you overstayed your visa. If your spouse is mistreating you, then VAWA could be an option here so that you can get protection. So get in touch with us ASAP. I'm in that situation. So I don't know which one, but I think it might be the mistreatment. Get in touch with us. That's exactly what we do. And we do have Attorney Diana speak Spanish. So you can always work with Attorney Diana if you're more comfortable with speaking in Spanish. Um, Came on a visitor's visa, filed asylum before 6 months. Am I at risk or have unlawful status? So great question. What I want to reassure you about is that if you already have a pending process, it's unlikely, it's not impossible, but it's unlikely that they're going to take you and deport you because you have a pending process going forward. And that process has to come to an end before any kind of deportation. Everybody that is everybody that is going through deportation, you have to have a process. Those people, for example, the immigrants who they just picked up and sent back, they already had a deportation order. So in that case, there was nothing else left to do. But in everybody else's case, if it's the first time they're being detained or caught up in deportation, they have to go before a judge. They have to state their relief. So the judge is still going to hear why they should stay, right? And that's why I say it's less stressful to do it before you get to the court, because the judge is basically the last resort. But everybody has to go through a process. So this is where you're even if you are detained or you're issued a notice to appear, it's time to get the attorney now to work on your deportation defense because you still have a shot before a judge. Is VAWA only physical abuse? Great question. No, it also covers emotional abuse as well. So it is broadly defined. So if you went through a situation where you are mistreated verbally, emotionally, even financially, it's time to give us a call. What about a person with 1 year expired work visa? What options should be taken? We'd need to talk to you because yes, 1 year expired work visa means you're out of status and at risk. So we'd want to Married for 4 years, still no petition. Should I be worried? Yes, you need to look out for yourself and see if you can pursue other options. What if you were allowed in by an officer through TJ? So unfortunately, the new arrivals who have been in the US less than 2 years are also very, very vulnerable to expedited removal. That is the one situation where they don't have to put you through deportation. So remember, I said previously, everybody or most people that get caught up in the detainment, you still have to go before a judge. Well, if you've been here for less than 2 years, that does not count. They can use their power. ICE can use their power to then ship you out because you've been in the country for less than 2 years. It's called expedited removal. So if you entered with the permission of an officer, um, yes, if you are paroled in, they're gonna look at the expiration date. But if you were just allowed to enter with a notice to appear, then you have to go through court proceedings. But at the same time, if they want to intervene, if you've been here for less than 2 years, they can always do expedited removal. Now, here's another thing. The defense to expedited removal is credible fear. So, a claim of asylum, but they'll put you through a credible fear determination as well. Is it safe to marry at a church? Wow. Nowhere safe, unfortunately. They are suing. So the religious Quaker group, they're suing to be able to restore the policy that officers not infringe in churches. But we have yet to see if the judge is going to put an injunction on that new policy that they can go basically anywhere. Um, but right now, no. Right now, based on their policy, they can go to the courthouse and they can go to the church. What about people's businesses and homes? Many people are doing the right things. Yes, they're doing the right things, but unfortunately, they're not really taking that into consideration. It doesn't matter really. I mean, if you go before a judge, showing good moral character, showing you've complied with the law, showing ownership of businesses and homes and residency in the US for 10 years can possibly lead to a cancellation of removal. Um, but that you have to go before a judge for that. So that's where that might matter. But as for them detaining you, it's not going to stop them from detaining. What if the person has to report next month? What will happen? So this is where you definitely need to consult with your attorney about the risk involved. I could never advise you on that part because there's a legal obligation on your part to report, but at the same time, we do understand under the circumstances that there is also the risk of detainment. So you definitely need to have an attorney advise you on that, so that you can make a decision on how to proceed. Because so we're as attorneys, we're advising on case by case in situations like this. I just sent in my documents like 3 weeks ago. Is that okay for all that is going on? So you're definitely in a better position than many that have not explored their options. So just look out for the receipt notice. If it takes too long, check in to see, make sure that it got there. I always do this. When you're sending your documents, track it. So if it takes them, because I guarantee they're very busy right now, taking applications, maybe slowing down to reassess their processes right now at the USCIS. So we might see many weeks go by and not see receipt notices. But what I do on my end is I track every single document that I send to the USCIS by FedEx. So, and I have a proof of delivery. So if something is delivered, I can see, and that's very reassuring because I know it got to the mail room and it's there. It might just be taking a while. My husband just got approved on the 25th, took 10 months and 8 days. You're well, I'm glad that my information assisted. Yes. And congratulations. That must be such a relief. To file for FAWA, is that only for physical abuse? No. It also counts for other types of abuse: physical, mental, verbal, financial abuse as well. What if I come here and get a job and I'm working and they're not paying? Get in touch with us. No, it doesn't matter about your immigration status. They promise you pay, then you started working for them and they didn't pay you, then you may qualify for T status because nobody's supposed to do that, right? They're not supposed to do that. Employers are supposed to pay. So get in touch. Let's talk about what's going on, and I can confirm whether you qualify for relief, and then we can submit to the government so they understand that you are entitled to relief. If you have an approved I-130 and an I-601A pending, can you still get deported if detained by ICE? So in the case where you have an I-601A pending, it's unlikely because you're going through a process that's supposed to allow you to get to allow you to have a decision first on the I-601 before you can be deported. So the I-601A is there to help you to get forgiveness for the overstay. So it would be a matter of showing that you have this pending process and them allowing you to finish that process. Um, what's the process? I want to resign and give up my citizenship. So that would be a different attorney. That would not be. I don't focus on rescinding citizenship. So usually you do have to, I believe you have to go and you have to fill out certain documentation to rescind citizenship, but I don't usually take cases like that. Is TPS holder with removal proceedings safe? Well, the removal proceedings indicate that you are going through a process before the judge. And so right now, yes, TPS does offer you protection right now. And you have removal. So you have to go through at least a removal proceeding before. Where are you located? So we're in Delray Beach, Florida. However, we do represent clients in all 50 states and around the globe. We're working to also make sure that we have capacity to help as many clients as possible get through this tough time and make sure that clients have representation, because that is the having representation gives you an advantage and it gives you the ability to empower yourself. So we represent clients in all 50 states and around the globe. What can I do if my lawyer abandoned my case, but I paid all the money? So it depends. I don't know the facts here, and really that sounds more like a contract issue with the attorney, maybe an ethical issue. So I wouldn't be able to advise on that. If I'm stopped by ICE and I have a receipt notice for T visa application, can I still be detained? So yes, being detained is still a possibility. They may use their discretion to not detain you based on a pending process. The tricky part about this, though, is to understand when to explain these things, right? It's a tricky process. The number one rule is to remain silent until you can talk to your attorney, right? So I can't, for me, I wouldn't say I can't advise you or whip out your T visa receipt notice, because the situation, the number one rule is really remain silent until your attorney can be notified and you can talk to the attorney first. Then at that point, the attorney can either step in to provide the receipt notice, um, or so it's all about timing and about the circumstances involved. If police stop you and the police, they can ask about your immigration status, but you're not obligated to answer. So at that point, just just starting to talk, starting to give all sorts of admissions to a police officer who's not an immigration officer could lead you down the path of detainment. Versus if you decline to answer and the officer sees you're law abiding, sees you have the proper driver's license, they may let you go. But in many states now, if officers have reason to suspect that you are undocumented or you tell them you're undocumented, many states now they're obligated to hand you over to ICE. So it's really all about timing. This is where I say having an attorney for advice is going to be essential at this point. How long till someone can file a green card after getting married? Right away, but keep in mind that is it get no what I say, get representation. Things are gonna about to get a lot more complicated. And during the last Trump administration, I got a lot of calls from people that started the process without a lawyer and ended up in big trouble because the immigration, they changed their processes and complicated the processes. They had new processes, they have new policies, they have new rules, and they could not keep up with these new rules. And because of that, some of them were even accused of fraud. Some of them were found not to have proper income, or they were found to be a public charge. So it's very important at this point to get legal advice and get representation through your process. Can someone file a green card right after getting married? Yes, but is it advisable? That's where having an attorney is going to be important. I'll give you an example. I represented a client who he and his spouse were well, at the time they met with me, they were not even married yet. They had a date in mind, they were going to get married, but they wanted legal advice first. But they had lived with each other for the past 3 years. So they had a solid foundation. They had joint bank account, joint lease. They had everything to show they had an ongoing relationship for the past 3 years. All they were going to do now is just seal the deal with a marriage. So as soon as they got married, we just filed the papers, right? Because they had so much evidence to show that they had a long-standing relationship. However, you have the others. I always use this example where if you are going to you go to Vegas to have the time of your life, then you meet the love of your life there. You say you go there Fridays, by Saturday, you meet the love of your life, by Sunday, you're married. And then is it advisable to file those papers on the Monday? Probably not, because you don't have anything. You guys have to now go and establish your lives together first. Oh, and then think about it. You have such a great story. You have you went to Vegas, but now the officer is going to be like, all right, you went to Vegas, you just got married to somebody overnight. Looks suspicious, right? Quite a story, but looks suspicious without any additional paperwork. I also represented another couple during the Trump administration where the spouse flew flew to meet the client. So they were a long distance, flew to meet the client and got married 2 days later after meeting the client for the first time in person. But then they spent some time living together, going through their marital processes, putting their lives together, and then they filed. And when we went to the interview, it was a hoot because they clearly had a great history together. Even though they were married very quickly, they took the time to go through marriage for a little bit. So the officer was quite amused by the fact that the petitioner just jumped on a whim and got married to the her husband very quickly. It was more of an amusing situation because the evidence was there. So the officer was just like amused that they got married that quickly, basically saying the client doesn't joke around. So it just shows you though that the outcome can be different based on the kinds of evidence. Evidence is going to be very important in a marriage-based process. Let's see. Okay. Good afternoon. Working as an HHC and I haven't gotten paid for 8 weeks. Wow. I'm so sorry you're going through that. Give us a call. If you're not getting paid, you don't deserve that. It doesn't matter about your immigration status. And I know in cases like that, they're holding your immigration status over your head because they know you don't have your papers. So what you're gonna do? That's an attitude. But you can do something about it. Um, is it safe to get married at court or at the church? I'm scared. So, are churches and courts safe right now? I would say no, it's not safe. You'd have to be very careful. Can people under asylum who have been here for 11 years be affected? So they have to make a decision on your asylum first, and then you may be affected by a notice to appear after the decision is made. What can I do if my lawyer abandoned my case? So that's not an issue I could deal with. How long till someone can file a green card? Okay, so I just went over an extensive example. Will his administration affect asylum? Eventually, we anticipate changes to the asylum, even affirmative asylum, but we'll have to see. I have a work permit. It will expire in September. How soon can I renew it? So usually 6 months. It's recommended to apply for a renewal 6 months before the expiration. Do you advise a permanent resident not to fly during this time? So permanent residents can travel. Make sure you have a current permanent resident card. If you're applying for an extension, make sure you have your original extension letter and your expired card together. Make sure your application is not denied because they will deny you entry into the country in some cases if you are denied while you're outside of the country. So I would say in those cases, limit your travel, but keep in mind that I'm not giving personalized legal advice. This is very general information. Get an attorney on board so you can understand what your rights are. How to change status from H-2B to getting a green card. It's through an employer, through marriage, through family. It just depends on your circumstances. If you have DACA, can you be deported if you don't have any crimes? What should I bring with me? So DACA offers protection. We haven't heard anything about a revocation of DACA. Yes, the court in Texas did say that it was unlawful. DACA was an unlawful program, but kept the DACA program for existing recipients still in place. So you still have a certain amount of protections. And, this administration has said that they will work with Congress to provide a more feasible path for DACA recipients. I do hope that's going to be the case. I know we have to take it with a grain of salt, but for now, you would be safe under if you do have current valid DACA protection. Has any EU visa pending been deported without work permit? So it just depends. A pending EU visa is like you have pending status, but it's not official, right? So it just depends. If, say, the EU visa person who's waiting for their application to be pending, if they know something changed and they became deportable, then they could be subject to deportation. How long till someone can file for a green card after getting married? So right away, but make sure you have the right documents. Hello, is Lake and Rye like VAWA law? No. So they have a new approved law, came from Bill HR 30, that says that if a non-citizen, undocumented immigrant abuses a US citizen through coercion, through basically non-physical as well as physical means, domestic, and that equals domestic violence, then they're deportable. The Lake and Riley Act says if you're even accused of theft offenses, they can detain you. So we do anticipate challenges to that, but the Lake and Riley Act is basically saying that theft offenses will now be deportable offenses and requires um, mandatory detainment. How long till someone can file a green card? Okay, so I answered that. Do you advise a permanent resident not fly? So I answered that. How long after receiving your green card from VAWA? If you're married to a US citizen, 3 years to get citizenship, right? Because the question is, how long can you get citizenship after getting VAWA green card? So 3 years if you're married to a US citizen, but 5 years otherwise. How long till someone can file for a green card? I also answered that. I overstayed my visa and never adjusted my status. If I leave, can I apply for a green card? It's unlikely. If you leave, you probably are going to be barred for 3 to 10 years, depending on how long you overstayed. If you have an approved I-130 and I-601 pending, can you still be deported? I can see where this would you definitely have the ability to be bonded out or asked to be released based on the pending case, but it's not a sure thing. People who have removal orders that are years old, but their country will not accept their return. So yes, that is an obstacle here. And in cases like that, where the country will not accept their return, they may look for alternative countries, or they may put them on like either detain them or keep them on a check-in status until they can deport. If I have the AP from DACA and married a US citizen, how long does it take to get a green card? So the AP usually is evidence of legal entry into the US. And that would mean once you get paroled back into the US, and in that case, 10 to 12 months, but we have to see how the Trump administration, how it affects processing times. How long till someone can file for a green card after getting married? Answer that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and jump to questions here on YouTube and then Instagram. Can N400 be filed after being married for 6 years, recently divorced, and I-751 has been pending 3 years? So yes, in that scenario, it's possible. Whether you can do that, you have to definitely give us a call, do your appointment with us, and we can determine whether it's time. But usually, if the time has passed while you have a pending I-751, it is possible. Um, Does a car theft qualify you for a visa application? Right off the bat, I would say no. But say it was car theft with assault, you were in the car, or they took you away and kidnapped you for a little, or detained you while they were stealing your car. So it all depends on the facts. Car theft alone may not qualify, but if they started to if they were in the process of stealing the car, they kidnapped you or assaulted you or something like that, then that would definitely look more like a U visa. What if ICE hold you and told you and you don't have a lawyer? Can I contact a lawyer from detention? Yes, they usually give you the ability to call out to your attorney. So I would say carry your attorney's phone number with you at all times. And have an emergency person who can be in charge of your affairs and help to gather any documents you may need to move forward. Hello, can TPS holders with valid EAD travel safely from Texas airport to Washington, D.C.? Yes. Having a valid current EAD, you means you have protection. So yes, you're able to travel. Keep in mind, though, that you should always ask for acceptable documents to travel because, over time they may implement new restrictions on documents you can show to travel. For example, the real ID. I believe they extended the real ID, but that is something where it's a specific driver's license that you can travel with. You can't travel with just any driver's license. Hello, can TPS holders with valid AD travel from Texas? So I answered that. A friend has a pending asylum with USCIS, but the 6-month B1, B2 is expired. Is this person undocumented and deportable even if, yes, so even if you came legally, but then you overstayed, you're now undocumented. Once you overstay, you're undocumented, and you may be deportable. My case is at NVC for priority date to come current for US citizen parent, sponsor, adult, unmarried children. Am I safe, and what documents I have to in case I stops me? So you definitely have an attorney to advise you. It just depends on your particular situation. And do you have a pending I-601A? That may be an issue too, because if you're here in the US, but you have it at the NVC, what's your game plan to get to the embassy for your interview? So I'd be concerned about that. I'm married, being there 7 years. My mother's a U.S. resident. Can my apply for me? Can I guess my mother apply for me, or is there any hope? If you're an adult over the age of 21, um, even if you so if, with your mother being a U.S. resident and not a citizen, she can sponsor you. Oh, and you're married, so no, she cannot as a U.S. resident sponsor married children. Only as a citizen. But keep in mind, as a married son or daughter of a U.S. citizen, it's still 12 years. Um, if your spouse files for your son who's in another country and you file for divorce, does that affect the process? No, it shouldn't affect the process. Can I be deported with an appeal in the appeals court? So it's unlikely until a final decision is made. Uh, Please, I did my biometrics for TVs in October 2024. When will I get my work permit? So, it's taking a while. I was hoping it would be 3 to 6 months, and it really hasn't even been 6 months until they issued the new rule. But definitely upon approval of the T visa, because there is a rule that allows you to get the work permit while you wait, but we're looking to see when those work permits are going to come through. Our administratively closed cases with asylum pending and very clean record are target for ICE. Yes, it's possible. If the case was closed, it doesn't mean that they can't always bring another case against you. So it is possible. The best thing you can do is find the relief that will be able to get you your papers. What happens with Adam Walsh denied cases? I received a denial letter. That said I have to leave the country, never received anything from the court. So there may be a waiver available in a case like this. You just have to look at your options, evaluate them very quickly to see if there's something else you can file for, before you have to leave. I'm an overstay B1 visa and going to marriage. My boyfriend US citizen. It's safe to do my do your adjustment of status. Is it safe to do the adjustment of status? I would say absolutely. If you qualify to get protection, you should be jumping for it. You qualify for it, you need to go for it. You can't, because you're actually putting yourself more at risk if you're afraid to apply. If you're afraid to apply, then you're going to just be sitting there in vulnerability, waiting for them to come pick you up. And then you wouldn't have anything to show to say you qualify. Once you get detained, it gets harder for you to go through the adjustment of status process. So it gets complicated. Why somebody can identify themselves with the opposite sex, and is it okay, but they can't identify themselves as a US? I don't understand that question. Have you gotten any bona fide determination for T's? Yes. So we're getting them in 70 to 90 days. What if someone requests a FOIA? Does that put the person in danger for ICE to visit them? So it's going to depend on a lot of factors here. So a FOIA doesn't usually trigger ICE because USCIS, for example, a FOIA to ICE doesn't usually trigger it. I usually do it on behalf of my clients. So, but you will be submitting information to them that they could possibly look at and use to figure out, where you are, what your residency is. So it just depends on what the situation is. I wouldn't say the risk is zero. What can a person do with permanent bar? It depends. For example, if you are mistreated and the permanent bar was triggered related to mistreatment by a U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident spouse, parent, or adult citizen child, then you could overcome that permanent bar through VAWA. Also, permanent bar can be overcome through the T visa as well. What if someone requests? Oh, so I answered that. I have a question. I have my advanced parole. Should I travel to Europe? Right now I'm saying I discourage anybody from stay put until your process is complete, because you don't want to take any unnecessary risk. Because they can always deny your reentry. Will public charge be retroactive? So the last time it was not, as in there was an effective date, and anybody who applied before that date wasn't subject to the public charge rule. So it's probably going to be the same because they have to put us on notice first, have an effective date, and then it starts on that date. God, only God, absolutely. Good to see you. Yes, it's good to see you too, Angelica. How helpful is congressional query to expedite a case? It can be in overwhelming cases. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go through here. I'm going to answer questions on Instagram. And I see a ton of questions on TikTok, but I'm going to go on Instagram first. Is it safe to travel international right now with my expired green card and extension letter? You're still a green card holder, able to travel. Make sure you just have your extension letter and make sure that your process isn't at risk for denial. Don't spend too long outside of the country. Keep in mind, I'm not your attorney. I'm just giving general information based on my own experience. I did see an example of someone, it wasn't my client, one of my clients, but I did see this nightmare scenario happen with one client that they left the country on the extension and then the green card got denied. And they were outside of the country while it was denied and they could not get back into the country because the card was denied. So, just be mindful of that. The risk isn't zero. Came to the US, married a partner, and then returned home. Then I came back to the US 3 months later and stayed. Do I need to file a waiver with my documents? I didn't know of fiance visa. So not normally. If you came here and then you changed your mind and stayed, then there was no intent to stay. You just changed your mind and filed for adjustment of status. So, well, I'm thinking you applied for adjustment of status. So I would say this, Rock of Gibraltar, get in touch with us. You need representation. Yeah, for sure. So that you can understand. If you have a pending T status, can you get married? Talk to your attorney. In most cases, it's fine, but I want to understand the situation. So if you have an attorney, talk to your attorney. If you have an upcoming immigration hearing, if pending, can you be removed if attending? Yes. So it just came down. There was a memo that was released that says that immigration court hearings, while they're allowing partial enforcement, so meaning that possibly if you are, they were kind of vague on the details of when they would enforce. ICE could come in and detain and deport, but if, for example, the judge found that you were removable, then technically they could then detain you right then and there in order to execute the removal. My husband came in USA on B1, B2 visa, overstayed, filed I-589 asylum. Can my daughter get F1 to study visa? It just depends on what the circumstances are. Get legal advice. I left the country over 14 years ago, had my son while I was a legal resident. I'm now wanting to see him off to basic training since he's going to the Air Force. May I apply for a tourist visa? Yes, if you had to give up your residency, then yes. You can apply for a visitor's visa. They now, if you didn't officially give up your residency, they may give you a special form and tell you you have to first give it up, and it's never a guarantee that they're going to give you the visa. Someone came illegally and overstayed, received removal order in 2018, but 2024 he got his I-130 approved. I-130 doesn't necessarily give you protection, so it's still in danger. If I'm married to a military person, but I didn't submit any of my paperwork, is it okay for me to travel? No, it's not safe. I received my EAD through AOS to a USC awaiting response on I-45, I-130. How can I retain you ahead of time in case I have a run-in with ICE? You can schedule an appointment, and then we can go ahead and review your case and then provide you advice on how to keep in touch with us. Hi there, Fel. Is it safe to travel internationally with a pending I-751? The risk isn't zero. My first instinct would be like stay put until your process is complete. But if you have to travel, you have to make sure you have the original extension letter and your expired card, and you have to make sure that your process isn't in danger of being denied. If you're a migrant, can you process a real ID? So if you're legal, if you have legal status here, then yes, it might be possible to qualify for real ID. F1 visa holder can apply for T visa. If so, what happened to F1 visa? So yes, it's possible. No, F1 visa might automatically become invalid just depending on the nature of the T visa, because T means you either did labor or there was sex trafficking. If it was labor, were you even supposed to work? And under the F1, so there may be issues there. But once you get approved for the T, there would be no need for the F1 anymore. The T visa also leads to the green card. So it's 4 years of having a work permit and having T status, and then you'd be able to apply after 3 years to get citizenship. I mean, the green card. Can a US citizen petitioner who went to prison for narcotics many years ago file for AOS wife? Yes, as long as it doesn't fall under the Adam Walsh Act. It's safe. So I answered that. Okay, 40-year-old LPR with T212C waiver. I have N400. Will it be okay? I'd have to look. Always make sure whenever you have complications that you schedule an appointment and have an attorney ready. during the last Trump administration, they were a lot more stringent on these citizenships. They look very closely at them. So we can anticipate the same thing happening again. So you want to be ready for any questions that may come up. Hi, I came in through Mexico border. I'm married to a citizen. Can I apply for green card? No, through adjustment of status, it's going to depend on your circumstances. If your spouse ever mistreated you, then VAWA may be an option. But if your spouse is the one that wants a petition for you, then you'd have to look at an I-601A waiver process, which is an alternative to staying here and getting your green card. All right, that's gonna be it for me. And I have to head out, but I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna be back. So just follow me, like, subscribe, and as soon as you see me come on, please join me if you have the time, and then I'll give you updates and continue to answer questions. These are all really valid questions, and I would say in the meantime, just push forward, push, and stay steady, stay positive. I know it's hard. Keep the faith and know that you're good. You're a good person. You've tried to comply with the laws. You've tried to, go about things correctly. You've tried to get your legal status here, and something is going to work, right? Something is going to work here. That's what we do. That's what I'm focusing on, our solutions here for clients. So focus on the solutions here. Empower yourselves. All right. Have a great one, everybody, and hang tight. Bye bye.